Welcome back. It's that time of the year and Adobe has released new versions of most of their programs. And today we're going to take a look at Adobe Camera Raw and Adobe Photoshop together. Now, if you're interested in Adobe Lightroom, since it's exactly the same program as Adobe Camera Raw, usually most of the additions that you see in Adobe Camera Raw are going to appear in Adobe Lightroom. However, sometimes what happens is Adobe Camera Raw is kind of like a test ground, and so what you see in Adobe Camera Raw doesn't come to Adobe Lightroom until maybe a couple weeks or a couple months later. In this case, we're going to slide on over to the computer, find out what's new inside of Adobe Camera Raw and Adobe Photoshop. All right, as you can see up here, we have Adobe Camera Raw 18 up here. This is the newest version, just released in October of 2025. And what we're going to do is take a look at all the new aspects that we care about. Because really, yeah, they added support for cameras and stuff like that. And do we really care about that? Absolutely not. So what we're going to do is just make the video sweet and short. I'm going to show you what's new. It's going to be up to you to go ahead and play with it and find out if you have in these options. All right. So the first thing we're going to take a look at, I actually think is pretty helpful. And for a couple of different reasons. And so what we have, and if you remember, we have point color inside of the main color mixer inside of Adobe Camera Raw. And if we select point color and we take the eyedropper over here, and then we come over to an area and we select it, is going to allow us to select within that range. Now, right here we have a little range, and we can move the range slider around to achieve different colors. All right. We can also come in here and adjust, and it's going to adjust those colors in this hue. All right. And we can change the hue, the saturation, the luminance, and the variance of the image. All right. We also have a range slider, so we can increase the range or decrease the range of those point colors. Essentially, this has always been inside of the color mixer because we can identify the colors and essentially do exactly the same thing. If we come up here and we make a selection, and what we're going to do is we're going to make a subject selection. So we're going to hit subject, and it's got the guitar and everything. That's perfect. So what we couldn't do is use that kind of same color method to adjust color in a specific area. And so when you would hear tutorial videos of me, I'm like, oh, just wait, do that in Photoshop. Because a lot of times when you're adjusting yellow, not in this case, but you're also adjusting yellow somewhere else in the photo, and that's not what we want to do. We want to identify it or have that be a specific spot. So before we had these kind of like basic sliders that we saw. So we have point color in here now, and now we can click on the point color and we can go ahead and we can select an area. So maybe I want to change the color of his head. All right. So we're going to select that color. It picks that color range that we see. We can adjust the hue, which is the color of the color. We can do the saturation, all right? We can increase the saturation or decrease. We can increase the luminosity, which is the brightness of the darkness, all right? And the variance. And so what the variance is doing is varying the color. So if you pick this specific yellow color, it's going to make this reddish color more like this yellow color by adjusting that. So we can decrease the variance. So what you can see is that skin tone is now becoming more even, or we can increase it and make that more dramatic. All right. So in most cases, what this is really going to help for is decreasing skin tones. So if you've ever taken a photo indoors, or if somebody has a really red face, you can pick the good area of the skin and change that variance to make the redder area look more like the better area. And this is a fabulous option. And what's great about it is because we can mask, like we see up here, we can make it happen just in a very specific point. So that is point color. So I'm going to go ahead and hit done. I'm not going to use this. Now, some of these other new features, I don't have a raw file to work this with. So in this image, I added some dust. So you can see here in Photoshop some dust, and I added a little line. So we're actually going to go backwards into Adobe Camera Raw to show you this. So inside of Adobe Camera Raw 18, we're going to come up here to the Remove tool, and we're going to go ahead and click that. So inside of the remove, you can notice come down here, we've got something called dust. And so if we open up dust and we check apply, it's going to go through and try to remove those areas. Now, it did not get everything, so I can control my brush size and add selections to the areas of dust that it didn't get. Now, this does it just in a circle. It doesn't let you draw a line. It just does a circle. If you need to control the size of those, you can come down here and control the size using your brush or using the scroll wheel, just like I saw you. Once you're done, you can go ahead and go back out of it, and you can see it's removed most of the dust. Did it get it all? No. I give it like an 8 out of 10, maybe a 7 out of 10. It didn't do a good job picking this stuff up. But if you need to go in there and further refine anything, you can easily just go ahead and grab your remove tool, your healing brush, or the clone stamp, and you could go through here and finish removing the rest of the area. So that is something new that it has added. We're going to go ahead and hit OK, and we'll go back to Photoshop. The last thing that we're going to take a look at here is a new landscape selection option. Once again, we're going to go back into the Camera Raw filter because this is not a RAW file. I had to download something. I don't have anything with mountains, snow. So we're going to come up here to the selection brush again, and we're going to click that. And you'll notice that we have landscape up here. So landscape, and we're going to select that landscape. And what it's going to do, it's going to give us options like it does with people. So if you remember now with people, we can select their eyes, their skin tone, their clothes, all kinds of different things. So if we look at landscape mask options, now we can mask the sky, the mountains, vegetation, water, snow, and natural ground. All right. So if we look at this, how well of a job did it do? Well, we know natural ground is essentially all that background. But if we go to the snow and we click on that, so it did a good job. It picked up most of the snow, but these little itty bits of snow down here, it's not picking up. So it's picking up the general large areas of snow, but it's not perfect. Just like anything, we can always add to the mask using a brush or a variety of different methods to refine what we do. So these are some new options that we have here. Once you are done, you could just simply hit create and you can make those adjustments as needed. That's pretty much it for what's new in Adobe Camera Raw. What we're going to do is slide on over to Adobe Photoshop, and I will show you everything that's new inside of that program. Hey, if you're looking for something new to wear, I have a company called T-Lab Designs where I design custom t-shirts and apparel. We make stuff for adults and children. All right, welcome. We are inside of Adobe Photoshop 2026. Now, if you download this, you will notice this is version 27. So version 27 is 2026 Photoshop. That is the new version. The first thing that we have here, and everybody has seen the bike, so we're going to do a simple bike test and a complex bike test. The first aspect we're going to take a look at inside this Photoshop is they have just improved these subject selections or AI selections. Now, to make sure that you have AI selections on, I'll just show you this way. This is an easy way. Go to settings, go down to performance, I think. And let's try image processing. Yeah, it's image processing. And where it says select subject and background removal, you want to make sure you're on cloud, not device. That will give you better selections, and then more stable, more stable, more stable. All right, so that will give you AI selections. This is really simple. We're just going to come down here, hit select subject. It's supposed to do a better job. So if you've ever tried this before, Photoshop had difficult picking spokes or highly detailed objects. We can go ahead and create the mask, and yep, just like anything, this is going to make an awesome selection. So I'm going to come up here and turn this mask off. When you're making selections, if your image is in focus, it's going to do a much better job of making selections. So that's a key aspect that doesn't get mentioned enough. Also, this is contrast by a white wall. This is going to make your selections easier. So what I did is I took a more complex object where we have texture in the background and color, and the color more closely resembles the subject. Once again, remember, the best selections are going to be made when your whole subject is in focus. So we're going to come down here hit select subject, give it a second to process the image. Once it's done, we'll come over there and select the mask. So we'll come over here and boom, just like that. It's got a little bit of haze that we can see down here. And what I mean by haze is it's sort of got a soft kind of nasty edge. This would need to be cleaned up. You could go into selected mask and refine this. So here's a great example. If you want to cut something out, you need to have the right background to make it the best cutout that you can. Is Photoshop better at it? Yes. Is it perfect yet? No. So this would definitely need to be refined. So I'm going to go ahead and hit 0. So in essence, is this a pretty good mask? Yeah, let's go ahead and see this on black. So we'll create a new layer, drag this below. I'm going to hit Shift Delete on a Mac. That's just the fill command, and we'll fill it with black and see what that looks like. And you can see, yeah, that looks pretty good. It's a little bit funky there inside of the spokes, but in general, this looks pretty good. So I just used this subject here before I updated the Photoshop on making hair selection. So one thing we'll see if it makes a better hair selection. So we're going to hit select subject. And it's going to make that selection. I could have done this in selected mask because I'm going to go into selected mask now. So we'll drop down into selected mask so we can hit refine hair so we can get the best selection that we can. We're going to output this as a layer mask. I'm going to hit OK. Now, remember, this looks great because it's not on the background of anything. What we're going to do is we're going to drag this image over. So I'm just going to take this image and drag it to this first image, put it in here. I'm going to right click to make this a smart object. That's just always a good way because I'm going to reduce the size. So I'm holding Shift and my Option key. That would be Shift and Alt on a PC. And I'm just going to reduce the size of this image so it fits better. We'll just drag her over here. I will apply that. And what we're going to try now is something new called Harmonize colors. So a lot of times when you make composites of images, you have the color from one image not matching the light and the color from a second image. So with the top layer selected, that is this layer, the cutout image, we want to make sure that we have that cutout image there selected. We're going to come down here to the contextual taskbar and you're going to see Harmonize. So I'm going to go ahead and click Harmonize and it is going to run through AI and it is going to create a new image up above here. And that is going to be the harmonized layer versus the original layer that we see there. So what's great about this is it's creating a non-destructive image up here. So it's blending those two images together. So you can see right here, it's taken this color and it's blended it and it's understanding that it's a sunset. It has made her somewhat of a silhouette. So up here on the top, we have our opacity. And I'm just simply going to drag the opacity down so I can blend that layer. So this is the harmonized layer. And if I want to brighten up the face a little bit, I can still retain a percentage of that adjustment just by lowering the opacity of that to blend it in. We're going to take this image and we're going to move it over to a second image and see how it does with this. So we're going to do the same thing. I'm right clicking. We're going to convert that to a smart object. We're going to reduce the size. I'm going to pull it down here. That looks good. I hit return to apply it. With the image up here on the top right selected, you simply drop down to Harmonize, let it run through its process to apply that photo non-destructively. The one thing I noticed down here, I've kind of got the arm cut off. I would normally drop that down a little bit, but essentially what we're looking at is the Harmonize. So it's picking up the colors. It is a very intense red, just like before. I can come up here and I can drop that down. I think that looks better there. So we have blended this color and the lighting with the background color, and that is what we call harmonizing color. Now, if you'll notice down here, it says 1 through 3 and it has some little arrows, and up here we've got variation 1, variation 2, and variation 3. So I can come in here and I can select the different options that it has given me. So if we drag this back up to 100%, you'll notice we have essentially a lighter version, kind of a middle version, and more of a darker, redder version. So you do have options. And so if we don't have any options we like, we can just go ahead and regenerate that to get new options in that location. All right, so another option that we have up here is color and vibrance. That is new. So this is very similar to the white balance inside of Lightroom and Adobe Camera Raw. So this is something that, yeah, I'm surprised it took them this long to add it. However, I still would suggest that you use this in either Lightroom or Adobe Camera Raw if you are processing a raw image, because you're always going to be better off doing this in the raw state versus after you've processed the image. But we'll come up here and show you what this looks like. So we're going to go ahead and click this new adjustment layer, and I'm just applying it to the background of this image. And you can see we've got white balance and we've got custom and default. So essentially I can come in here and adjust the temperature, the tint, the vibrance, and the saturation, just like we could in white balance. So if I want to alter or adjust my white balance, and I must say, in a lot of color corrections, this is much more accurate than anything that we've had inside of Adobe Photoshop. So if you do forget to do it in Adobe Camera Raw, you could have always gone back right into Raw and done the exact same thing, except for now we have the adjustment layer here. Is there a difference? Absolutely not. It's doing the exact same thing that we did before, except for there you're going to have some presets, and here you won't have the preset. We can adjust our temperature. You notice it is blue on this side and yellow on this side, so we're going from cool to warm. We can add more green or add more magenta. We can increase the vibrance or decrease the vibrance, and we can increase the saturation and decrease the saturation. All right, so with this image selected, I'm just going to come in here and make a little thing like that. And I'm going to go down here to where it says Generative Fill, and I'm going to add a photorealistic windmill. And you will notice that down here, because I've switched it, it has a big G, and that is for Gemini. I'm going to go ahead and click on that. So before, we've had the Adobe Firefly Image 3 model and the Firefly Image 1, but now they have added Flux Contacts Pro and Gemini 2.5, aka Nano Banana. So we now have these new partner models. However, I have an education version of Adobe Photoshop, and I don't actually have access to these two. So I can still use this one here unless I turn that on. And at this point, the administrator has not turned that on. So I'll show you here with Firefly, but what it does, it creates a generative model just like we saw before. However, if you don't like what it achieves, you can then go ahead and do it using Nano Banana or the other partner model to create something. And then you have your choice over which one you like. Just like before, we're going to get 3 different options here, and we can pick the option that we like the best. The last thing I'm going to show you is some new upscaling. So if you have an image, in this image I have sized to 2000 pixels. And so before, we could either use super size if it was a raw file, and I would probably still use that. We can go to image, and we would come down to image size, and we would just increase our image size using preserve details 2. That was the old way of doing this. You can see right here it says open in generative upscale, which is the new AI upscale, or you can basically select the image and then go up here to image and then generative upscale here, and we can select that. And inside of this, we're going to get some options. Okay, so we can use the Firefly upscaler. Notice it says restore low res images, meaning if you had a 500 pixel image, you can upscale it using the Firefly upscaler. All right. Down here, we have partner models just like we had before. So we have Topaz Gigapixel and we have Bloom. So Bloom only lets you upscale, and it creates new details and it enhances your image. So if you imagine this was a little out of focus and you wanted it to be more in focus, it could create new details that weren't there in the beginning. However, this, if we click on this, only works on a 9 megapixel image, which is teeny tiny. So I don't see where that would be beneficial. The other one here is the Topaz Gigapixel. This will allow you to do it in a much larger image, I think up to like 58 megapixels. This will allow Photoshop users to use Topaz Gigapixel to upscale their image. Once again, this is a partner model. I don't have access to it, but we can come in here and do 4 times and then upscale our image and hit OK. I personally like supersize. It works great. I shoot images inside of that, but if you do have some old JPEG files and you want to give Topaz Gigapixel, I've heard good things about that. Notice right here it's got face recovery. So if you have some blurry details or a low res face, you can click this and it will kind of recreate those and make those look better. Unfortunately, I can't show you how this works because I don't have access to it. But look, those are the main things that are new inside of Photoshop that a photographer is going to use. There are a few video editing things and exporting functions in Photoshop where you can now export into 4K, and just a few other basic things that I don't think are going to be very helpful to most people. So that's what's new inside of Adobe Camera Raw and Adobe Photoshop. If you found these videos helpful and can give me a thumbs up, that would be great. If you have any comments or questions, you can leave those below. Don't forget to subscribe and have an absolutely wonderful day. Hey, if you're looking for something new to wear, I have a company called T-Lab Designs where I design custom t-shirts and apparel. We make stuff for adults and children.